I wanted to know what you studied for undergrad and then how did you end up at Google?
Honestly, I didn't know what to study.
Being close to family, the only reason you wanted to move back to India?
I think it also helps to be in a country where a lot of the economic center of activity is moving.
How's the ROI going to be if I really want to come back to India or if I do not get a job?
One is the ROI part, one was job opportunities, and one was also the brand recognition.
Was there a big jump in your role at Google versus your role at Meta in terms of position and also in terms of finances?
That's a great question. I think
So, yeah, Rishi, thank you so much for joining us today. The aim of this podcast is going to be very simple, just to give more insights to the people who are potentially aspiring for a master's and MBA to have a clearer picture of what they can expect or how, they have different options in front of them after they're done with their MBA or master's. So thank you so much for joining us today. And if you could just give us a brief overview of everything that you've done so far, that will be very great.
how long can I take to give you that brief overview?
However long you
Always
want it to
want,
be.
yeah.
Do you want a personal and professional overview or mostly a professional overview?
I think personal and
Oh,
professional would be ideal.
yeah.
Both. Okay. I was born and raised in Delhi. I spent time there till I was 12 years old. My father's job took all of us to Bangalore. So I spent my middle schooling and high schooling years in Bangalore. And it just so happened that right around the time I was graduating from 12th grade, my father's job was taking the family to the Philippines. And I'm very, very close to my family. So I was at this intersection. Should I stay back, study in India? I got admitted into a couple of universities in DU, or should I head to the Philippines? And I looked up the Philippines on the world map because I didn't even know where this country was. I took the decision to go with my family to the Philippines, and I was there at a university called De La Salle University. I was there for 2 years, a little over 2 years. Fantastic country if you haven't been. Absolutely the best and most kindest people in the world that I've ever met. While I was there, I felt like I could push my boundaries a little more. So that's when I wrote the SATs and I applied for as a transfer student. So I was very lucky to get admitted into New York University. So I transferred to NYU and then I completed my graduation there. So I was there for about remainder of 2 years of my graduation. And of course, New York was a fantastic city. It really, really pushed my boundaries. You meet people from all over the world. The unique thing about New York is that even though it's the most diverse city in the world, it can also feel like the most lonely city in the world because everyone's so different
Yeah.
that it's easy to feel out of place, right? And have that lack of belonging. But it was a fantastic experience. As you can see, life had changed like so quickly, right? So it started off with growing up in Delhi, then Bangalore, then Philippines, then New York. I never had aspirations to kind of live and work outside. I think a natural thing for me to want to do at that time when I was about to graduate was to come back to India. It was always very clear that I wanted to build my career in India and be in India close to family. So I came to India. I spent a year working with one of my closest friends on a company that he was building called Campus Diaries. This is way back in 2013 and 14. And the inception of Campus Diaries was to solve the problem statement that a lot of corporates wanted to hire students who were highly talented for vocational work. So graphic designers, photographers, content writers. So that was kind of the genesis of Campus Diaries. Spent a year there and then moved to Google, where I spent a large amount of my career. I was there for about 4.5 years across two different roles. My first role at Google was in operations, where I was managing technical concerns that a lot of high value clients on Google Ads had. And these were clients that were based in the Australia and New Zealand market. So that role really helped me learn the Google Ads product inside and out. And it's a very complex product. So it was a great learning. And I was also interested in doing something that was more frontline, where you could talk to the customers and nurture relationships. So I moved into frontline sales, where I was a part of the small and medium business portfolio. And I would manage a portfolio of clients that were deemed as high potential. And what I mean by high potential is hey, can we provide a full-time resource, i.e. Rishi, to work with these clients on their marketing objectives and strategies as far as digital and Google Ads is concerned, and show them high returns based on their industry and their KPIs. Really enjoyed that because it was vertical agnostic. So I worked with e-com, I worked with aviation clients,
Right.
I worked with clients in BFSI and education. Fantastic experience. But that's when I was at that juncture where I was thinking about doing my higher studies and doing an MBA. I'll take a quick pause there in case you have any questions before I proceed
I think we're
to the
saving
MBA.
them all for the end. So we'd let you finish and then
Yeah.
we can pitch in all our.
Amazing. So I think MBA was also on the cards for two different reasons. One, I always wanted to study more and more in terms of like a management lens. At Google, the entire time I was an individual contributor. I wanted to push my boundaries a little more and be in an environment of extremely diverse people from not only different countries but also different work backgrounds. Have and people that have had work experience. Right, by then I had close to about 5.5 years. I think then the learning is more rich because then you're sharing real experiences based on
Right.
your own personal and professional lives. And another part of that was a little more personal where my father didn't have an MBA and he had struggled a lot when he was looking for jobs when he was much younger. So I think
Right.
he had that aspiration for one of his kids to kind of do that because he felt that it's a safety net that you can have
Yeah.
in case the economy takes a downturn. So I think these were the combined reasons. INSEAD was always, I'm very lucky that it worked out, but INSEAD was always my top choice for two, three reasons. One, it is arguably the most diverse B school in the world. INSEAD has internal guidelines that no nationality can occupy more than 10% of the class. So they have a very big focus on making sure that you have a diverse class. In my section of 42 of us, we were 21 different nationalities. Right? So you really, I mean, just thinking of it makes my heart fill with joy. It just pushes your boundaries so much. You learn so much. Absolutely
Right.
fantastic. So yeah, I read up a lot about INSEAD. I knew what it stood for. And there were a few things that I think worked in my favor in terms of some of the international experience that I already had garnered. A few things that did not work in my favor, like a low GPA. But I made a case. I made a case to them. Like I had this line that I thought of at that time when I was applying. Because a lot of times you approach it in the sense that you want to write what you think the adcom is looking for, or you want to
Yeah.
write what the reader might be looking for. And I was very clear that I am just going to be myself and talk about my experiences so that if I don't get it, I never have to second guess not being authentic. So I thought of this line that I would rather be judged for my authenticity than be liked for a facade. Right. So being authentic was kind of my core principle while applying to INSEAD. And luckily it worked out. Um, Spent the entire year in Singapore. It was during COVID. It was
Yeah.
all of 2021. Um, I was actually, when I applied, it was 2020. And I was supposed to go in July of 2020. And, we're all aware with the restrictions and lockdowns and stuff. So I ended up going in December and I was at INSEAD all of 2021.
Got
Over
it.
there also, my thought process was pretty clear. In life, I've never known what I want to do, but I've always known what I don't want to do. And I always knew that I don't want to work outside India. I want to be close to family.
Right.
So after INSEAD, a natural extension was to again go into the digital ecosystem. I'd seen the Google side of things. That's when I applied to Meta, and that happened. In Meta, I was co-managing one of their largest portfolios in the e-commerce vertical, and I did that for 6 months. And I feel so odd talking about myself. I'm not used to talking to someone. Like I start feeling awkward when
Interesting
when I'm
story though.
talking.
Like you have so many diverse experiences and
Right.
yeah, they would have
I think a
helped.
lot of it was luck, yeah. As you will notice, it wasn't on the back of my own work. It was a lot of luck and privilege that I've been able to fortunately have.
I
But
think
yeah,
it's a part of
yes,
whatever you plan to do in life, right? Like whatever happens for you, luck has a major role to play, and it's not entirely in your control at any point, is what I feel.
I totally agree. If anyone does not attribute a large part of their success to luck, they're lying to themselves.
Exactly.
Right.
Fair enough. Yeah, you
Nice.
can continue.
A funny story. I downloaded Instagram the weekend before I was joining Meta. I never used Instagram
Yeah.
before. Classmates at INSEAD will also tell me, they'd tag me on stories and they'd send me screenshots where it would be like at Rishi who doesn't have an Instagram account. I downloaded it the weekend before because I was like, if I'm managing such large clients that have such high spends on Instagram, I should know what the product's all about.
Of
Right.
course.
And I was at Meta for about 6 months. I felt that the digital ecosystem was something that I had learned and I wanted to push my boundaries a little more. I had some ideas on things that I wanted to build on my own. So I left Meta after 6 months to build something on my own. I was building something in the gaming ecosystem, which unfortunately didn't end up working out. But while building that, because I had more time, especially in the research phase, I kept thinking of ways to add value and give back in my own little capacity. And I think one place where I could give back, I thought, was in this whole MBA process, right?
Right.
Narrowing down schools and applying to schools. And because a lot of it, like we just discussed, was luck, right? And if I've had that luck of learning so much, why not pass it on to some people? So I also started mentoring students at a new age business school in India called Masters Union, where I'd work with students on, students that wanted to go into sales roles or students that wanted to crack the digital ecosystem, on sharpening their resumes, interview prep, and career guidance. That was playing my little part in trying to give back
Nice.
for the luck that I've received. And about 13 months ago, I joined this fantastic social impact organization called Karia, which is in the AI data services space. And what's unique about Karia is that Karia is a world-class organization that chooses to be a not-for-profit, where the work opportunities that Karia gets is for communities that have largely been underserved. Like the founder and some of the co-founders always say that talent is universal, but opportunity is not. And that's the problem that we at Karia are tackling. And we've been very, very lucky to have received love and recognition from the industry as well. Satya Nadella has called out Karia multiple times in his keynotes. Uh, our founder, Manu, had the opportunity to spend 60 minutes with Sundar Pichai one-on-one, telling him more about Karya's work, shortly after which Google.org awarded Karya $1 million to continue the work that we are doing. Karya was also on the cover of the Time magazine in July 2023. And I just have the privilege of amplifying the foundation that the founders, Manu, Vivek, and Safia, have built. So that's what I do at Karia. I lead customer success, which is all our key relationships with clients like Google, Microsoft, Google DeepMind, Zoho, the government of India, and many, many more. And now I'll pause because I'm feeling very, very awkward. Spoken so much.
Fair enough. That's quite a journey. And okay, I had one question, like starting from your undergrad. So I wanted to know what you studied for undergrad, and then how did you end up at Google?
I did economics.
Okay.
And honestly, I don't think I didn't know what to study.
Yeah,
Right out of school,
same for me.
you've taken commerce in school, you've done business studies and economics
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
math. I
Right.
love math, but taking a math honors course was not my cup of tea for sure. So I think economics was by process of elimination, and I quite enjoyed studying it as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Vani and I are both econ graduates right here. And I think it was a
Yeah.
similar reasoning for me too, in which I had no idea what to study. And math was something that was very rigorous for me as a subject in general in isolation. And I was like, I don't want to be a professor in life. So I was like,
Yeah.
economics it is.
For me, it
So the
was
three of us have that in common.
Yeah, so for
Yeah.
me, it was just I wanted to go to DU. That was something I was sure of, and I got good grades, and I was like, okay, this is the best course I can get into, so might as well just get into it. And I enjoyed math, so I was like, yeah, might as well. But yeah, I had no clue. I think it's unfair to expect a 17, 18-year-old to know what they really want to do, so it's fair enough.
I was dealing with bigger problems, yeah, to see where a country is on a world map and knowing that I'm going to
Fair, fair, fair. And then how did you transition to Google? And was your being close to family the only reason you wanted to move back to India?
I think it also helps to be in a country where a lot of the economic center of activity is moving anyway towards
Right.
Asia, and then in a country that's at the forefront of a lot of the action as far as economic activity is concerned. So that certainly helped. My heart goes out to people who might be from countries where they don't have an option but to work outside, right? So then you have to be either be away from family or they move with you. So it
Right.
worked out in my favor in that sense. So family was, of course, the driving factor, and it just helps with the point in time and the juncture that our country is at.
Right.
Right.
And okay, I think one question that many students ask us, right, in general, that how's the ROI going to be if I really want to come back to India, or if I do not get a job, or if these universities which are in the global top 20, they have the same recognition in India as well. So what are your insights about, these things? I mean, Vani and I, of course, have our own answers as well, but I'm like, just curious to know about what your perspective in that regard is.
So there were a couple of parts to that question, right? One is the ROI part, one
Right.
was job opportunities, and one was also the brand recognition. Yeah, on the ROI part, I feel that we all have our own constraints. And here by constraints, I mean financial constraints,
Right.
based on which the ROI would look different for different people, right? I had the privilege and the opportunity to have absolutely amazingly supportive parents who were very supportive in funding my education if I got into a premier institution.
Hmm.
And luckily that happened. So for me, when I thought of ROI, it was a much longer term perspective, right? Where getting that education enables you to grow in your career. It's not like you come out of it and you were Sundar Pichai the next day, right?
Right,
Uh,
of course.
it sets you up and enables you to grow in your career in the coming years, right?
Right.
And in terms of for people where they have to work with certain financial constraints, I think I would maybe not be the best suited to answer that. So I don't want to speak from my backside and say something that's entirely incorrect.
Which is fair, right?
As
Fair enough.
far as brand recognition is concerned, I think the INSEAD alumni network in India is extremely strong and absolutely incredibly responsive.
It
You
is.
know,
Right.
there hasn't been one time where I haven't seen someone put up a question and not get an answer, and not only not get an answer, but also get an answer really, really quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
And as far as networking with companies and having studying at INSEAD was concerned, I didn't feel that it would be an issue because INSEAD is one of the premier institutions in the world. And that was also validated by my conversations with companies when I came back and started actively recruiting.
Right.
Oh, one thing, like one question there. So you were working at Google before NCR, and then you worked for a year after and moved to Meta, right? So was there a big jump in your role at Google versus your role at Meta in terms of position and also in terms of finances?
That's a great question. I think, in fact, that would be the answer to this would be relevant to people who want to learn about, the
Right.
before and after. There certainly was. Let's address it in two parts. One is the role, and one is let's say, the income, salary, and finances part. In terms of role, companies like Google, Meta, big tech companies are very flat in their organizational hierarchy. So when I was
Right.
in Google, my reporting manager was the head of SMB businesses in India, right?
Got it.
But the gap between us in terms of levels was, of course, so much more, right? But just to give you a
Hmm.
sense of how flat the hierarchy is.
Right.
At Google, I was managing a portfolio of about 50 clients that would spend a few $1 million collectively a year on Google Ads. At Meta, while think of the move as like a lateral move, because again, the hierarchy is very flat, I was managing the largest e-com client. The book of business was many, many, many millions and multi-fold of what I was managing at Google. So there was certainly a jump in terms of the stakes, the scope of responsibility, really, really senior stakeholders that you are interacting with because the book of business and portfolio was much smaller now. So I was
Right.
managing only 4 clients, but very, very high spending clients, one of the largest e-com players. I mean, one of the first two, three names that would come out of our mouth.
Right.
So that definitely was there. Second, in terms of the finances piece, there was a pretty substantial jump on that front as well. I think the difference
Fair
would
enough.
be in the higher 40s, 50% in terms of what I was earning before versus after.
Fair enough. So there is also an immediate impact of getting an MBA, right? Of course, the long-term impact is there in terms of the network that you build and it accelerates your career in general. But I think there is also an immediate impact, even if you decide to come back to India, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
With the the advent of AI and when was it? 2022, 23 November. Things might have changed a little bit, but I can speak about at least from the time when I was studying.
Hmm.
In India, and people might have their own opinions on this, so this is just my perspective.
Hmm.
In India, we have a lot of supply, right? So you have demand, which is companies that have demand for work that they want to give, they want to hire people, and then supply is people like us who are applying for these jobs. We have a lot of supply, and we're a highly talented country, extremely talented country, and there's so many of us.
Right.
So I think anything that you can do to kind of give yourself an edge, to make your candidacy stronger for whichever company you aspire to work in or whatever you aspire to do in your working life, I think really helps. So in
Fair.
that sense, the MBA made a lot of sense for me.
Fair. Yeah, people are doing lots of stuff to stand out, but then eventually, for example, the CFA, right? People who want to get into finance, it started with a few people wanting to stand out, but now every other person is doing it, and it just becomes like a norm and basic
No.
requirement for particular roles. But yeah, I think the fact that these B schools, for example, INSEAD here is so exclusive, that's what makes it great, and that's what makes it aspirational, and that's what makes it stand out or makes people alumni like you stand out. So yeah, fair enough.
Those are very kind words. I don't know if I deserve kind words, but thank
Oh,
you.
and also, like you spoke about alumni net INSEAD's alumni network, Anand and I recently attended this alumni mixer, which was organized by NCR, and LBS grads were
Right.
also invited. So we were also there, and we realized how tight knit the community is and how active everyone is, and we really appreciated it. And I think, yeah, I think they're doing a great job, at least in Delhi. We know the Delhi team, so they're doing a great job.
Absolutely. And I hope to meet you both in person at the next one that
Yeah,
happens.
for sure, for sure. I'm
For
definitely.
sure. We told them that we'll be coming and every one of them. But it was super cool. And in that direction, I think one insight that we also like for anyone who is sure that okay, they want to come back to India or probably Dubai or any particular geography in their head, it's always important to make sure that the university that they're going to has a good credibility in the geographies that they aspire to work in both in the short run and the long run, right? Precisely because of these reasons. Because for LBS for us as well, I think we have like a mix or something every month at least, and they are very proactive, and it's like the go-to, group that we have for any doubt, be it professional, be it my own business or family business or someone in the job, right? It's just a community that is giving that support. So I think having that community is just, like the biggest ROI that you as a student of any university can probably get for themselves.
I totally agree. Yeah. And again, just my perspective, I think if you take the US out of the equation, I think universities like LBS and INSEAD have a really strong brand recognition in Asia, Middle East, and Europe for sure.
Yeah.
Right. You mentioned that, you decided to work at Meta for 6 months. So, like, what made you, like, how did you, since your role was, like, your motive was a bit different, right? It was not a company in Europe, in Singapore, in London for that matter. So, how did you really approach the entire job search? Was it via networking or the standard, like, routine way of applications? How did you go about it?
During big decisions, my dad always tells me that, Rishi, a wise man learns from a mistake or from the mistakes of others. Fools learn from their own mistakes. And I keep telling him that I'm a fool. I'll make the mistake, I'll learn. Uh,
Yeah.
so I never had a strategy. My strategy was to, when I came back, I actually took a couple of months off to deeply think about what I want to do next. And I was torn between going back to big tech or now that I'd worked for 5 years. And the reason I moved from Campus Diaries to Google was because I wanted a little more structure. At Campus Diaries,
Yeah.
we were a young team of 15 people doing everything.
Yeah.
But now that I'd done the Google side of structure as well, I thought that I was well suited to now go back into the young company startup ecosystem. So I was at that juncture trying to decide between the two. And I started speaking to young startups and at the same time having big tech at the back of my mind. But startups were front and center what I actually wanted to do. The same friend, one of my closest
Hmm.
friends who I worked with at Campus Diaries, who was one of the co-founders, was managing Meta's largest client globally at that time. And he and I continue to stay in touch and we catch up every now and then. And he tipped it in big tech's favor. So he said that, Rishi, the way I look at it is if you can come join Meta, you would have seen Google and Meta, spend a couple of years here, you'll have a complete 360-degree overview of the ecosystem and then look at maybe going to younger companies. So I think that was that one statement that he made, which eventually motivated me to apply to Meta. And then, of course, luck played its part again. That I was lucky enough to have them feel the same way that they wanted me on board.
Right. And sometimes you're just waiting for someone to say it, a second person to come and tell you what you want to do. Even though back of the head, you know you really want to do it, but you really need that validation from this person to tell you, okay, I think this is something you should do. And it just pushes you to take the leap, I feel.
Agreed. And I think when it comes from one of your closest friends, you take it even more seriously.
Yeah.
I don't know why children have this tendency to not listen to their parents and siblings as much, but listen to their closest friends.
Right. And you switched fairly quickly, right, from Meta. So the motivation was to only like, was it the fact that you wanted to have something of your own, or was it some realization that you had?
Yeah, I saw this white space in the gaming ecosystem that I wanted to kind of tackle. So I think it was also an opportune time for me to do that, and I didn't want to lose out on that time. I always felt that having worked at Google and having gone to INSEAD in a smaller stint at Meta would still set me up probably if I wanted to look for a job sometime in the future if that didn't work out. So that was my risk reward
Okay,
analysis in my
got
own
it.
head, uh, which some people agreed with and a lot of people disagreed with.
Got it. Got it. And coming back to your role at Meta, so I think it was more around account management, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, think of it as like account management, relationship management.
Correct.
Yes.
So, I think you had a similar role at Google as well. So, how would you recommend someone who's maybe just graduated from, you can maybe consider a top university in India, for example, any DU university or DU college, or maybe a school outside of India like NYU, or there is UCL or LSE in the UK. So how would you recommend those kids to actually look at, like, how would you describe the role, number one, right? How would you put it in simple words for someone that young? And how would you, if, for example, they're interested in the role, how would you recommend them to go about it?
Okay. So there are two parts to this question, right? One is how would you describe the role to someone who doesn't understand, so non-technically describe the role. And second is how would you recommend that they go about applying for this? Did I
Correct.
understand you
Exactly that.
correctly?
Yeah.
For the first part, in terms of the role, the problem statement is very simple. I come to you and I say, Vani and Anya, I have 100 rupees in my marketing budget. What I want is I am an e-commerce website. I want to focus on sales of t-shirts and sneakers. How can I spend this 100 so that I get more? But you are the experts here. You are the subject matter experts. You know the product well enough. I don't. I have the marketing budget. So work with me, partner with me, be my thought partner, and help me get a high ROI. It's as simple as that. Right? So that's the first part. The second part, in terms of applying to these roles, I think one thing where people make mistake is they don't reach out to people enough. Even we wouldn't be having this conversation had you not reached out to me, right?
Correct.
And I'm sure for every 10 people that might be unresponsive, you still have a few that are responsive, right? That want to add value in whatever way they can. So I think people don't reach out to others enough, right? So find Googlers on LinkedIn, find people who are working at Meta on LinkedIn. There's no ego here. It's for your own
Right.
learning and your own growth. Reach out to them. One will stick. And the
Correct.
amount that you learn in that half an hour conversation with that person would be much better than what you read on different online threads. So I would use identifying the role. And of course, I've taken it as a given that the role's responsibilities and years of work X align with yours. And
Right.
then setting yourself up for having a good application by actually reaching out to people in those roles and speaking.
Right. And for me also personally, I think this perspective came into place after LBS, because this was this business school ideology or perspective. And before that, I wouldn't reach out to people on LinkedIn. I would be scared of not hearing back, or I would feel like, okay, they will probably not, I would just assume they wouldn't reply to me. But once I got into LBS, they push you to cold text people and to reach out for jobs, ask for references. And I think also the stress of getting a job really gets to you. And then you just feel like, okay, this is the only way I can go about it. And eventually that made me realize the importance of reaching out to people and how it can do wonders, right? Most people find a job that way, especially because there are no college placements, etc. So I think the we people need to realize the value of just cold texting, cold emailing, and how it can open doors for you.
Absolutely. Being comfortable with rejection, whether it's in your dating life or on LinkedIn, is a skill that everyone needs to
Yeah.
develop. And
Yeah.
I'm lucky to have developed both skills.
Fair enough. I think we only have 6 minutes left, right? So, Anya, any last questions that you might want to ask?
Yeah, just I think one question could be that, for example, many people who are coming from commerce backgrounds, they naturally assume that in big tech they won't find positions that are well suited for them because they might prefer to hire people from engineering backgrounds. So in that regard, like, like since you have been in both these companies, which are like the targets, dreams of, anyone who is in like college essentially, what do you think are the type of roles that both of these like like in big tech in general has for freshers from commerce background as well?
Firstly, if there are freshers that feel that way, then I'd like to communicate just to them that that's a myth, right?
Yeah.
When I was in the sales org, most of us were from non-technical backgrounds. Whether it's even product management, even product marketing management. I have so many friends who moved to different roles within these companies that are not from technical backgrounds. So you can get into partnerships with publishers, you can get into sales with actually dealing with clients, you can get into vendor management, you can get into product marketing. There are a whole host of roles that don't require you to have a technical degree.
Right.
That's
Fair
why,
enough.
honestly, that's great to know because in my head also, of course, sales I understand, right? It's more about your negotiation skills and the way you communicate. But the fact that product management roles also take in non-engineers or people not
Absolutely.
from a tech background, that's great to know because it's quite an interesting field.
Yeah.
And I really had that myth, like that assumption that they only take in people from engineering backgrounds.
Right. And just to like end it up, right? So, like, for example, if anyone is in the master's or like undergrad final year and they want to prepare themselves for these roles, so what will be the plan of action that you recommend for them that, okay, A, reach out to people, B, like, what do you recommend the path to be?
Step one, find the roles that align with your experience. Step
Right.
two, spend a lot of time on your resume. I don't think people realize how important that is. Think of it as like, I mean, some of us might have, some of us might not have, but when you're on on a dating app, you put your best foot forward, right? People
Yeah.
spend so much time picking like the best photos. What am I going to write in my bio? I mean, your resume is your professional dating app profile.
Right,
Uh, and I've seen people not spending enough time there. And you have to really be very thoughtful about how you craft that resume, right? Instead of saying,
Right.
I managed a portfolio of clients, say I nurtured a portfolio of clients. Even
Right.
just simple words, changing managing into nurturing can make such a strong impact. So I think
Yeah.
so that's so part one is find the roles. Second, really spend time on your resume.
Hmm.
Third, if you're applying to big tech, do not apply without a referral. What
Hmm.
happens is that these companies get so many resumes
yeah,
that they have an ATS that filters resumes and you get a rejection without a human having looked at your resume itself. A
Right.
referral guarantees that a human will at least look at your resume.
right,
Hmm.
So part one, you find the role. Part two, spend time on your resume. Part three and four would be the same, that you start reaching out to people, learn more about the role, and then hopefully get a referral from
right,
someone who's you. If not, then from one of these people. So that at least
Right.
someone looks at your resume. And then part five will be very, very conscious about the interview prep, right? That's your 45 minutes of convincing another person. I think every role is a sales role, at least till you get it, right?
Yeah.
So your sales role in terms of being an interviewee, where you
Right.
have to now sell yourself to the person.
Right. Be it B school applications, be it job applications, marketing, like it's basically marketing your profile. It's essentially
Absolutely.
that.
And it's not rocket science. I don't think anything that I've described is.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
Correct. I think that's about it. And I think this has been very useful. We have put in certain tips, very summarize a lot of tips, which could be very helpful. And thank you so much for your time, Rishi, and thank you so much for just being here. And if we can be of any help at any point, do let us know. And again, thank you so much for your time, and I'm sure this will be very useful.
Fantastic, yeah. Thank you, Anya. Thank you, Vani, for having me. And I'm really sorry for the scheduling issues, but
No
I
problem
hope
at
that
all.
Of course, no
if
worries.
we can add value to even like a few people, then I think
Right,
this would have
that's
been
the goal. Yes.
And keep me posted. Good luck to
Will
both
do.
of you, your endeavor.
And
And please do keep in touch.
yeah, and hopefully see you as one of those mixers.
Done.
Soon, soon. All
Okay,
right. Perfect.
bye-bye.
Right.
Have a
Bye.
great weekend. Yeah.
Thank you.